Hello, hello. I see some people are already here. I'm just testing out a couple of things to make sure everyone can hear me, everyone can see me, and I'm doing all that right now. So let's go ahead. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just getting a couple things straight for you all. Good morning, everybody. So just like we do every day, I see a couple of familiar faces. Welcome back to the Mbadika Tinkercad webinar for us to be tinkering together during these times. Just like before, we start 10 minutes after the hour because we're getting stuff straight and waiting for some people to come in. But while we're waiting for some folks, materials that you will need for this session: A, log into Tinkercad. B, have paper. C, get a writing utensil like pen, pencil, marker, Crayola, crayon, whatever you need in order to sketch and draw. And last and finally not least, this is something I'm throwing at you guys right now, a ruler. So the 4 things you'll need is make sure you're logged into your Tinkercad account. If you don't have a Tinkercad account, don't worry. I'm going to give you instructions in the chat box. Second, don't forget your paper. Third, a writing utensil such as a pen, pencil, Crayola crayon, color marker, etc. And last but not least, a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, all you need right now is a straight edge because we're going to be using it for our sketching portion for today. But I hope this morning is a good morning for you all. Hope you're feeling razzle dazzle, and give us a couple of minutes as we make sure some people come in and we handle some technical stuff, and we'll get started. If you have any questions before we start, feel free to go ahead and ask them while we're waiting for some people to come in. You'll probably see me humming and bumming, so I'm just making sure everything's working okay and everybody is good before we get started for real. So, morning. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Also, you probably do not know any of the beats that I'm humming if you were born after 1998, so don't worry. Just think I'm the coolest person you ever met, or digitally met, or virtually met. Either way that you've met. But let's go ahead. Let's go and make sure we have everything we need right now. Okay, I'm gonna do one quick edit. So you got about 6 minutes. Don't forget, for those who are just joining us, because I see 1 or 2 new faces, I'm going to go ahead and add to the chat. Go right here. na 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 na. Mm, mm, na 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 na. Mm. Oh no. Okay, about 4 more minutes, folks. Ooh. Sorry, I'm just reacting to making sure everything is straight. So if you see a lot of weird hand movements, don't worry, that's just me reacting to my computer, as some of you guys do and are probably used to doing, like in the privacy of your own home. But when you're on like a live stream or on a webinar, sometimes other people get to see your behavior and get to see all the weird little quirks you may have when you're when you think you're alone with your computer trying to resolve something. But you guys get to see it, so it's okay. It's totally okay. It's totally okay. It's fine. It's fine. But make sure you have those materials, because we're going to have 2 different projects today. The first project is going to be our warm-up like usual, and then we're going to continue on with our major project, which is going to be creating the perfect oasis. So that's why you will need those materials. If you have any more questions, I'm busy answering questions and making sure everyone's on the same page before we get started in a minute. But before we get started, give me your last minute questions. Make sure you have your materials so we can get started. And there's also a couple of announcements and things I want to bring to you all's attention. So we got to do the whole, I don't say boring, but we have to do like the actual and now you know stuff first, and then actually get into the project. So we are closing it in the last couple of seconds. Let's see right now. That is weird. Okay, that is totally weird. Okay, so everybody should have their materials together. Everyone should be ready. Everyone should take a deep breath in, deep breath out. And let me see from a show of hands, is everyone ready? I want to see some hands up so I can know when to start. Okay. I only see a couple hands up. Okay, I see maybe 30% of the people I see here with their hands raised. I want to see everyone's hands up. I know it's the morning, depending on your time zone. It could be really early in the morning. So I want to see those hands up. Let me know that you are here, that you are conscious, that you are ready to tinker together. So raise your hand and let me know. Come on, I'm only seeing 50%. Like, you guys know I'm a very active instructor, so I need to make sure that I can see everyone is awake. Everyone has access to all the tools that Zoom webinar provides us. So come on, I need to see those hands raised before we get started. Because one of the comments or questions that I had yesterday was that sometimes I'm moving a little too fast. So I'm gonna have, just like I debuted a little bit yesterday, we're gonna have a project for those who are blazing through, and I'm gonna follow along with the build with me section. But for here, I just wanna make sure we are all on the same page. So I'm gonna take a couple more seconds till I at least see 90% of your hands raised saying you are ready to go. And that's just to make sure everyone is here, everyone is logged into Tinkercad or had time to create their account, and we're able to move forward. Because today, I'm trying to jam a lot in today because we have a lot of stuff that we want to do tomorrow. So I need to make sure you're with me, that you are with me here. Also, I had my full cup of coffee today, so I'm feeling really happy right now. Perfect. Okay. I'm seeing a couple more hands raised. That's making me feel a little bit more confident. So let me go through what we're going to do today. So yesterday, just to review, we did an introduction to circuits. Some of you have already built circuits, but this was an introduction to circuits using Tinkercad circuits. So we made two different versions of a simple LED circuit. We tried a simple LED circuit with a AA battery. Then we tried a simple LED circuit using a coin cell battery, or this bad boy right here. Once we made our coin cell battery simple LED circuit, we added a couple little hiccups onto there in terms of how do we make sure our LED doesn't explode, and how do we make sure our LED doesn't explode? Who wants to hit me up in the questions? Who remembers how we resist the electric current going through our simple LED circuit? Yes, I'm making sure you all are awake. Yeah, está bien. We added a resistor. So we went from a simple LED circuit with a coin cell battery, and we realized that was too much electric current in our simple LED circuit, so we added a resistor. Now, remember I said yesterday that every electric circuit turns something on or off, or it controls something that turns on and off. So we went from a simple LED circuit, which had a power source, which was our coin cell battery, that turned something on, which was our LED. We were able to control the current going through our LED by adding a resistor. What else did we add to control our simple LED circuit yesterday? What did we add to control that simple LED circuit yesterday? Da 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 da. I have to remix it. Da 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 da. I just can't figure it out. I mean, what did we add to our simple LED circuit to control it? I see some answers just came in. A push button. So this is a little bigger than the push button we use in the Tinkercad circuits software. This is what I call one of my favorite push buttons because you get that satisfying click. This is gonna be my ASMR moment. Yeah, you could hear that click a little bit. This is a push button. So we added a push button in order to control our simple LED circuit. And our push button allowed us to do what? What was the actual function of the push button? It allowed us to do what? Did it allow us to make the LED become brighter and dimmer? Like, what did it actually do? What was it actually controlling? And if it feels like I'm giving you easy questions, it's because I'm trying to get your brain going, because we're going to do some stuff that's a little higher level today. So I want to make sure your brains are ready for what we're about to do. So what did the push button do in relation to the LED? Okay, I see some answers coming in. Yes, it turned the LED on and off. See, I'm not trying to trick you this morning. I'm not trying to trick you. Very simple, easy question. So that's what we did for our warm-up yesterday using Tinkercad circuits. Now, for the actual Tinkercad part and the 3D design part yesterday, we actually started work on building our perfect oasis. So does anyone remember what actual collections we used yesterday when we were talking about our perfect collection? Oh, perfect oasis. How am I getting tongue-tied? It is so early in the morning. So who remembers what we actually used for our perfect oasis yesterday? So this is a check to see if you have your Tinkercad dashboard open, and you can actually go to your right-hand side and see which collections we used in order to create our very basic layout yesterday. So go ahead and remember where your toolbar is. Yes, someone's already mentioned one of them. It was the OMSI Hangout Space. So we used that collection yesterday in order to get started. What were some other stuff that I used in my demo? And just to jog your memory, this is what it looked like here. So this is what my Tinkercad Workspace looked like for me creating the draft of my perfect oasis. Because if we remember correctly, yesterday, we said we were going to make this into a creator space. And what we meant by creator space is that this could be for a puppet show, this could be a music studio, this could be where you move the stool to the side, or the stool is a prop, and a TikTok meme that you're creating. So this was supposed to be the blueprint or layout of our perfect oasis, something that we could create in our homes that allowed for us to have the perfect escape and to indulge in some private activities and being able to enjoy ourselves while we're in this period of stay at home. So this is what we stopped on yesterday. I told you all to go ahead and start brainstorming and looking a little bit more into what you exactly wanted to do, because I think you all created, and I hope you did, an actual sketch of what you wanted your perfect oasis to look like, and started actually bringing in those ideas into Tinkercad. Now, I saw some people's submissions, and I have to say, you all are way more creative than me. I think we're gonna shout out one person who actually used the Scribble Tool, which is right over here, in order to actually create a blanket or a rug in their actual perfect oasis. I saw some people creatively using the box perfect shape in order to create a platform for their actual space. And some people actually created from scratch an actual tent or an actual place to fit all their items inside. So for those who were here yesterday, you remember that I said this is supposed to be a layout of how you arrange stuff in the interior, because there's not a way to import soft shapes. And what we mean by soft shapes is like fabrics, blankets, and sheets, and sometimes like very soft pillows, even though you can add a rectangle to replicate a pillow, to your actual Tinkercad work plane. But I saw a lot of you people use your creativity to get around that. So we're gonna work on that a little bit more today. And then I'm gonna show you 2 cool things you can do with your actual CAD model once you're done. But speaking on what we did yesterday, I want a show of hands. How many of you guys have actually seen the Tinkercad blog in the past couple of days? And no shame if you haven't. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see, so no shame. I see a couple of hands raised. Have you seen the Tinkercad blog? So basically where all the announcements about the Tinkercad projects that are being released, anything related to the Tinkercad software, et cetera, et cetera. So just to give you guys a heads up, when you actually go into your Tinkercad, you'll see this little green bar here. And I'm actually going to change my mouse so you can actually see me spotlighting it. So here, this is the area you will get updates, exciting competitions and contests and alerts from the actual Tinkercad team. Because of what's been happening in the world over the past couple of days, you will notice that pretty much there's going to be something on this ticker every day for the next couple of days. So yesterday, it was an actual link to this webinar to allow you to register and sign up. But because you all are here, I'm going to assume that you registered correctly. But today, there was something very interesting I saw this morning that I wanted to bring to your attention. So if you go to your Tinkercad dashboard, which is basically when you're in this zone here, you'll notice on the upper bar, it says enter the distance learning with Tinkercad contest for your chance to win. Contest closed June 1st. So when you click the link, you're going to be brought to this page. And this page, shout out to Becky, an amazing maker, is going to actually detail all of the things you need to do in order to compete in the distance learning with Tinkercad contest. Now, unbeknownst to me, one of the projects we've already done this week qualifies for the distance learning with Tinkercad contest. If you missed one of our projects this week, no sweat. All of our projects or previous recordings are on our YouTube channel. So simply go to @MBDA, MBA, oh my God, MBADIKA. Can you believe I've been running my own organization for 10 years and I literally forgot how to spell it this morning? Whoa, this has been a weird couple of weeks for folks, especially myself. But you can go to our YouTube channel to catch any previous webinars we've done this week for our Tinker Together sessions. And in case you missed any of the projects and want to review in terms of this contest. So if you're on this webpage and you see this here, you can actually see it's for educators and parents who are using Tinkercad as part of their distance learning experience. However, you can also use this as part of your distance learning experience if you want to partner with your parent or with an older sibling, or heck, if you want to even partner with me and use what we've been doing here to enter the contest. So when we scroll down, you can tell that there's some pretty awesome prizes. If you create a step-by-step guide on how you brought your individual project to life, you can be entered to win a $500 gift card. And the categories that you can enter in include Make It Move. To win this prize, you need to demonstrate that you have designed and made something with functioning parts. The second contest is Connectors. The prize is for any assignment that encourages the creation of connectors. It can be as simple as an L bracket for a robot or connecting a bicycle to power a blender. That's when you want to do some creative stuff that connects one thing to another. Silly Solutions shows an example of how you've identified a problem or something broken and used 3D design to create a fix. This one I think is an excellent category if you want to stretch your creativity muscle and do something really cool. Mashup. Show us how you took two different things and mashed them up together to create something completely new. This is something we're actually planned on dabbling in, so you're already going to see some examples of mashup projects, and hopefully that inspires you to create your own. And then the last category, the one that fits perfectly to what we're doing, is Scene. Scene is the prize given for designs of physical spaces, from parks and landmarks to undersea adventures. And what physical space have we been designing over the past 2 days? That's right, your perfect oasis. So your perfect oasis project is a perfect project for the Scene category of this distance learning contest being hosted by Tinkercad and Instructables. So if you're looking for contest information and rules, feel free to actually click that upper link in your dashboard. Please ask parent permission in order to get started. You can use your actual Tinkercad account to log into Instructables to start creating your first Instructable. If you're curious and want actually to go through step-by-step how to create your first Instructable, I'm more than willing to do a webinar next week on how to get started using Instructables, but I need you guys to let me know. So either send me a Q&A saying you're interested and I'll tally up the votes at the end to see if there's enough interest for us to do a whole day focus on Instructables and how to publish one. If you're unfamiliar with Instructables, I'm going to give you a quick tour of it. Pretty much Instructables is where you can go to get your step-by-step instructions for a wide variety of projects. I personally use it whenever I'm battling a project that I've never encountered before. For example, I grew up woodworking. Woodworking is one of those things that you really need someone who has expertise to show you. I look at YouTube videos all the time, but sometimes I need words to actually help me go through the process. And so that's when I lean on Instructables. A lot of times you'll find Instructables for doing simple simple projects like the one we're going to do today, which is lovely, been actually promoted by Penelope, who's part of the actual Autodesk team. She has a lovely step-by-step if you want to do this project that we're about to do for our warm-up in a different context. You can actually follow step-by-step on Instructables.com, and I'm going to be providing that link in the chat. So before we get started with the warm-up, because I know that was a mouthful, and that was a lot that I just went through. Okay, can you help me? We are trying to find it. Give me 1 sec. Let me go ahead and add that link into the chat so you guys can look at it and review it. Give me 1 second. Da, 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 da. Oh, that is also copyright. You know, some of your favorite songs that you want to hum and you're just like, I can't hum it. Okay, so here's the link to the distance learning contest. Boom. So you should be able to see that popping up. And that's the link to the actual Tinkercad blog that actually highlights the distance learning piece. So let me go ahead. Any other questions? Okay, we got a couple people who found it. Perfect. It may not appear if you're already in your work plane, so you have to go to your dashboard to see that little upper announcement. But the project we're going to do today is stencil related. And I'm going to explain why we're doing a stencil related project. If you've never heard of a stencil, don't worry. We're going to go step by step and explain this project. So give me the hands up if you're ready to move on, that you found the link so you can review later or you can review quickly now. But the scene category would be the perfect category for you to submit your perfect oasis project. Okay, I see a couple of hands raised. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes so I can see a couple more. I'm not going to try to rush you through because while you have someone here who could explain stuff to you, I'm going to allow you to take your time and make sure you don't have any more questions. So let's go ahead and see. Oh, okay. Okay. So go ahead, keep raising those hands so I can know. Okay. So I'm getting some messages that some of you all have not got in the chat. So let me see. So as you'll know, sometimes we can have issues with technology, and it seems when I'm sending you stuff on the chat, it's not coming out clearly. So let me see if there's an easier way. I do apologize. I'm getting notifications that certain things are not, there you go. Certain things weren't being pushed out correctly. So I do apologize if you haven't seen anything in the chat the past couple of days. I just got someone to notify me what the problem was. So let's go ahead and check in if there's any last minute questions. So this will be the time for last minute questions. You're going to get tired of me saying that, and raise your hand if you're ready to move on so I can make sure we can move on as a group. And as I told you, this is a very hands-on webinar. So you don't get to sit back and just chill as much as you can with other webinars or Zoom meetings you probably had. Okay, I see some hands raised. I want to get a couple more hands raised because we leave no man, woman, or child behind here. So I'm going to wait till we get some more hands raised before we move on. And this doesn't mean peer pressuring people to raise their hand. Okay, some people are like, I'm ready to start the day. Let's get to it. Hold on, just hold on. Like, give a second. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. Remember, we're tinkering together. Okay, I see the majority of folks have raised their hand, so I'm going to keep moving. So for those who are with us on Monday, you know that one of my guilty pleasures while I've been staying at home is watching Korean home cafe videos on YouTube. It's a very niche category or a very special category to me. I don't know what it is about clear ice cubes and milk being poured over them and having strawberries, whole strawberries in those clear ice cubes, but I absolutely adore it. And one of the things that I've also slowly come in love with is the art of making coffee beverages. So if you've ever had a colleague go to like a Starbucks or a fancy coffee shop, one of the things they're really big on, especially if they have baked goods, is using stencils. So you all probably remember stencils from back in the day when you had to use a stencil, such as the stencils here, in order to draw outlines of an A or a dog paw or a crown or a heart. I can tell you that when I was in elementary school, these stencils saved my life. My handwriting was horrible, horrible. And the stencil I would have was an alphabetic stencil. So whenever I had to do poster projects, I couldn't write letters this big. And when you had a poster project, you had to write your letters. You had to write humongous letters that were sometimes this big. So what I would do was buy these stencils, and these stencils were the alphabet stencils. So it was every letter of the alphabet, kind of similar to this one here that you see on this Instructable. And I will actually have all these letters on this big piece of plastic, and I would have to use a ruler to line it up and actually place the letters to make sure my letters were straight and on the same line, to be able to spell whatever the title of my projects were. It would take me 3 to 4 hours to do this, but every time I did it, I was so thankful for having a stencil. One of the things I never realized as an adult I was gonna encounter was that stencils are great for other things. Stencils are great for creating temporary tattoos to share with your friends. Stencils are also great for trying to jazz up your baked goods, such as your cookies and cakes and pies, as well as your beverages. So depending on what side of the world you're on right now, it could either be spring or it could be fall. And for me, while it is spring, it's kind of dark and muggy. I live in Boston and it's kind of been raining. Well, yesterday we had a good day, but today it's been kind of wet and muggy. So when I woke up this morning, I wanted to try something a little different and wanted us to create, as our warm-up activity for today, a stencil for us to use tomorrow to create a handcrafted beverage. Now, I'm also going to give you a little context. So the past couple of days, we've been kind of stuck in front of our computers, right? And I wanted to change it up a little bit tomorrow. So instead of actually doing all of our stuff on Tinkercad tomorrow, today we're going to do a lot of prep work for some stuff that we're going to do in the kitchen tomorrow. Because I wanted to show you guys how to use a stencil to make a custom beverage for your loved ones or yourself, depending on, you know, how your family members or people in your house are treating you today. On top of that, I wanted to show you one of my favorite Tinkercad projects of all time, which is how you can make a cookie cutter, or how you can actually make chocolate using Tinkercad printed projects as the molds. So we're gonna vote on which one we're gonna do, but the one I am definitely gonna do tomorrow is showing you how to make cool cafe beverages using stencils. If you can't visualize what I'm talking about, let me show you an example. So here we're on Paige Russell's Instructables, and she has a cool Instructables on a foolproof love potion. Hopefully that's not anything that applies to you all right now, but what I love about this love potion is these little hearts here that are on top of the actual whipped milk or the foam on top of this beverage. And so this is the kind of thing I want us to use our stencils for tomorrow, to make some very low-tech, low-key personalization to our beverages to make us smile in the morning. I'm a huge Hello Kitty fan, if you haven't been able to tell, and one of the things that really brought a smile to my face was using my Hello Kitty toaster. If you've ever been to Target, you probably know what I'm talking about, but it's a toaster that you put your pieces of toast in, and it actually prints Hello Kitty's face on the side using a stencil. Now, is the stencil made of plastic like this one here? No, it's actually made of metal. But the fact that I could have a piece of toast with Hello Kitty's face would be the difference between waking up with a smile on my face and waking up kind of going, oh my God, it's 6 o'clock in the morning and I have to go to class. So I think a stencil project for the morning is a perfect project. So, ready for our warm-up activity? Give me a show of hands so I can know when to move on. Yes, I like to have you participating. Okay. So I see a couple of hands raised. Give me a couple of more so I know that everyone's on the same page. Perfect. Let's get started. So we're going to go over to our Tinkercad dashboard. And when we're on our Tinkercad dashboard, we're going to go over to create new design. And when we create new design, unlike yesterday, we're creating a new 3D design. So we should see our work plane look something like this. So on this work plane, we can get started with our stencil. With your paper, pen, writing utensil, marker, what have you, I want you to sketch your top 3 ideas. You're only gonna have 2 minutes for this. I want you to quickly sketch 3 ideas that you wanna create a stencil out of. Heck, if you really like those ideas, maybe we can add all 3 to your stencil at the same time, just like we did here, or like that's not my stencil, just like Penelope did here with her stencil. So you're gonna have 2 minutes to quickly come up with 3 designs that you would love to bring to life on your stencil. And I'm gonna go here and make sure everything is straight and set up so I know exactly what Tinkercad file this is. So you have 2 minutes. Making sure everything is straight for us. You have 1 more minute before we get started. Ooh, I'm so excited. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. And yes, if you haven't noticed by day 3 of this, I am a huge hummer. So if my humming sometimes makes you go, no, feel free to mute when I give you guys a set amount of time to actually work on some stuff. I'm working on it, as I've said, it's one of my 2020 resolutions. And yes, I do believe in resolutions, but keeping them reasonable. So I'm gonna let you all have your last 30 seconds to get straight before we actually start making our stencil. So come up with those 3 ideas for me. Don't overthink it. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it. Remember, we're just tinkering together. This is us flexing our CAD muscles right now. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. 15 more seconds, and we're gonna move on. Raise your hand when you're done so I can know how you're following along with us. So I want to see hands raised to make sure we're ready to actually move on to the CADing part. Starting our day. It's such a bright day. It's a Wednesday. Yes, this is how. Okay, so your time is up. I want to see some hands raised. Does everyone have their 3 ideas written down on a piece of paper? Hopefully you didn't just write them down, but you also did a quick sketch so you know what you're actually going to be bringing it into your CAD environment. Hopefully. Let me see those hands raised so I know. Okay, let's get a couple more. Okay. Perfect. Da, 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 da. Okie dokie, moving down. So in order to get started with their stencil, we're gonna look over here to what exactly Penelope did. So let's review for a second. So this image right here, we can tell that she used some shape here, and then she cut out some shapes in order to create the stencil. So it seems kind of straightforward, right? It seems we really only need to use maybe 3 tools. Who wants to guess in the Q&A what 3 tools we possibly need to use based on our experience with Tinkercad in order to bring to life Penelope's stencil for our own purposes? What 3 tools that we've learned over the past couple of days do we need to use in order to bring Penelope's stencil to life? And don't worry if you're just joining us for the first time. You may not know the actual name of the tools, but you know we need to do something to create a hole, something to make sure this is straight, that this is lined up with this, and this is lined up with this. And we also need to do something to create the outer shape, right? So let me see what you guys are thinking now. What do we think? I see one suggestion, the Scribble Tool. Scribble Tool is one possibility. What else as a tool in Tinkercad that we can possibly use in order to bring this to life? Basic shape, that's one tool we could use. So we have Scribble and we have basic shape. What are other shapes we can use to bring this to life? I mean, there's something missing here. Someone would say it's a gap. I would say it's more like a hole. There we go, someone got it. Wasn't being too low key, but you can also use a hole, so that's 3. 4, you can use the group tool in order to create this. So we have a scribble, hole. You can use a basic shape like a square. You can also use the basic shape box in order to create this. What other things do we need to do? Remember, we want this to be centered or in alignment with the other shapes horizontally and vertically. So what tool do we need to use for that? We need to use the merge or the group tool, yes. We can use text and numbers. So we can use, in our basic shapes collection, we can use text and numbers. So we have basic shapes such as text and numbers box. We have the hole tool. We have the scribble tool. We have, did I miss one? I think I missed, did I miss one? Hold on. We have the hole tool, scribble tool, basic shape tool. There's one other tool. Yes, someone got it. My favorite tool in Tinkercad, the align tool. That way we can make sure that the shapes are aligned from top to bottom or vertically and aligned horizontally or down the row. So we have the align tool, the group tool, using basic shapes, the hole tool, and last but not least, being able to use the scribble tool. So that's 5 tools that we can use in order to create this actual stencil. So now comes our first actual design warm-up. So when we're looking at the love potion that Paige made right here, it's kind of easy to see that the love potion stencil could be made various shapes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make my design decision that I'm going to use the cylinder basic shape tool, and I'm going to bring it to the middle. I'm going to actually, and don't feel like you have to follow along. I want you to pay attention to this because this is me showing you, and you're going to have time in a couple of minutes to actually create on your own. You see how we're changing it up, that I'm no longer holding your hand as much? Growth. That's what we're doing today. So I told you before, I'm not a huge fan of using millimeters when I'm teaching because I usually teach to an American audience, and in America we use inches. So to make sure people understand what my grid or work plane looks like, I'm going to go ahead to edit grid. Oh, I got to click off. Got to click off. And the computer is messing with me. Then click edit grid. I'm going to go and change my units to inches. I'm going to change my actual work surface to 10 inches by 10 inches. And the reason I'm doing 10 inches today is just because I'm creating a stencil that's going to sit comfortably on top of my coffee mug. And because I don't want it to be like 12 inches or a foot long, I'm just going to keep my work plane to 10 inches by 10 inches. Here, I'm going to double click. I see here it's 0.787 inches wide and 0.7 inches long. I don't want it to be that. The way I'm looking at it is I'm going to use my ruler. See how that ruler comes into play today? Now you may have a you may have a regular desktop ruler, but today I'm going to introduce you to a new tool. This new tool is called a caliper. Calipers are used to create very precise, measurements when you want to know all the way up to 0.000 of an inch. So for me, I want to be that person because the actual stencil size that I want is the stencil size of my Hello Kitty thermos top. So I'm going to take my top, take this bad boy right here, and I'm going to use my calipers to do it. You don't have to use calipers. That's why I suggested using a ruler. And what I want you to do right now is use your ruler to actually measure a cup in your home. So you have to go and run and get a cup. So go ahead and do that. I'll be here. and I want you to measure the cup. And we're gonna measure a cup together in order for us to flex our measurement muscle, because what's the point of CADing stuff to bring to reality if it's not realistic, our measurements? So go ahead and get a cup. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna measure with my calipers and show you how to measure with your ruler. So I'm gonna give you guys a minute to go ahead and do that. Who thought you were gonna get exercise, math, and CADing with some engineering all in the morning? So go ahead and do that. I'll wait. If you have one by you, that's okay. And when you come back, raise your hand so I know you're ready to get started. Oh, yep, I gotta stop. I already saw someone say in the comments like, you're humming again. I'm sorry, it's a habit. I'm so old. It takes a long time for me to change those habits. So whenever you feel like you have bad habits, just remember, adults do too. So let's see here. Just raise your hand when you found the cup so you can actually measure. I'm adjusting my calipers accordingly. Oh, wow, you guys are really, really fast. Okay, so we have a couple of hands raised. I'm gonna give you guys one more minute to go ahead and get your cup. Actually, matter of fact, should I go ahead and get my measuring tape? Will trusty measuring tape do the job as well? Because I want to show you how to use calipers, so whenever you encounter calipers, you know how to deal with them. But I'm also I'm going to show you how I would do the same thing with my measuring tape. So I'm actually going to run for a second and go get that. One sec. Ha-ha! And go ahead and plug myself back in. Whoop, whoop. Almost took my goggles off with that move, but it's okay. So it looks like everyone ran out and got their cup and are ready to measure. So the way I measure is that sometimes you'll hear people say, measure from the actual edge of your ruler and go all the way to the end. So if I was to measure my cap, I will start at the edge here. I'm gonna move this little lip here so it's easier for you to see. I'll measure from the top of the cap all the way down, right? And so what I'm seeing right there is about 2 1/4 inches is the width of my actual cup, which if you were here on Monday and I measured my Starbucks cup was about 2.5 inches. So I know it's ranging from that. However, when I'm using a ruler, that's not how I measure. The reason why I love measuring with my measuring tape, if possible, is because I know this little metal part here is my absolute zero. So I can hook it on the edge of something, pull it down, and be able to get a pretty good measurement. It's harder to do that with a ruler because with your ruler, you're trying to line it up to the edge. And when you have something round like this, the most you can do it is an approximation, which means a kind of measurement. It's almost like when someone looks you up and down and goes, oh, I think she's about 5'2". Until they actually pull it out and zero in and mash your hair down, it's only an approximate measurement. So the reason why I like using my measuring tape is I can clip it to the top. When you're using a ruler measuring a cup, here's a trick you can do. Instead of measuring from the 0 mark on your ruler, move your ruler over 1 inch. And what I mean by that is that instead of starting at the 0 mark on your ruler, move your ruler down and start at the 1 inch mark on your ruler. So that way you at least know that you can account for that little difference. Because if you notice on your ruler, I want everyone to look at their ruler really carefully. You'll notice that rulers are made in big factories. And sometimes where your 0 mark on your ruler is, it's not exactly the 0 mark at the edge of your ruler. But if you move it to 1 inch in, it allows for you to be able to take a more exact measurement because that's a more, how can we say it, firm starting point. So I want everyone to start at the 1 inch mark on their ruler and try to line it up to the edge of their cup and measure the width of their cup. So go ahead and do that. and then raise your hand when you have that measurement. When you have the measurement, I want you to write it down on your scrap piece of paper in which you wrote down your 3 ideas, because we want to make sure we remember that number. So once you measure it, write it down so you can remember that number. If you don't like the trick about using it from the 1-inch mark instead of the edge of the ruler, you don't have to follow it unless you're doing some very exact measurements. The way I learned about this trick is that in 6th grade, I was actually making my history fair project, and I was building a wooden ship from scratch. How did that relate to history fair? I don't know. I was just making an excuse to build something because, yeah, I felt my history fair project needed an engineering component, let's call it. So I built a wooden ship from scratch with my dad. And one of the problems I kept facing was I was using a ruler and I was starting from the edge of the ruler and measuring out, and all my pieces weren't fitting. I could see the pieces my dad was cutting and the pieces I was cutting, and I thought I was pretty good with the ruler. And I was getting frustrated that it seemed that all my pieces were off by 1/8 an inch, until he finally showed me this trick because he was tired of going back over my wooden planks and fixing them. And he showed me to start at the 1-inch part to make sure I didn't get an extra 1/8 of an inch, because the ruler doesn't really start, the 0 part of the ruler doesn't really start at the edge of the ruler. So hopefully that makes sense. And that was a lesson that cost me about 10 hours of wood cutting time that I'm hopefully sharing with you to save you time in the future. So hopefully you got the actual width of your cup measured. If you need any help measuring your cup, let me know. But I want you to write down that number and raise your hand once you have it written down. Okay, I see a bunch of question marks. Do you guys want me to actually show you with the ruler how to do this? And please let me know in the Q&A section. I don't mean to confuse, it's just a tip or trick. If you want to avoid, measure it the regular way. And I'll show you how I actually measure with my calipers. Yes, give me 1 second. Okay, that one took a little longer because I had to go upstairs and then come back downstairs. So this is not the greatest ruler ever shown on a Zoom webinar, but this is the ruler that I use. It's a basic ruler. Hopefully you can see. So pretty much instead of starting right here, you'll notice, hopefully, that the 0 mark doesn't start here. It starts right there. So instead of starting at that mark right there, start here and measure out and subtract 1 inch. So for example, where's my top? Here. If I measure my top from the direct edge over, I'm getting a number that's about 2.5 inches, right? So if you can see here, I'm getting 2.5 inches. But I already know from using my measuring tape that this isn't 2.5 inches. It's more like 2.25 of an inch. The reason why it has another 1/4 of an inch is because of the space between this round part and where the 0-inch part begins. So this part to here adds has a little bit more to the measurement. Sometimes, depending on how the ruler is made, it can add an extra 1/8 of an inch. So that's what I mean. All I see is oh, see, this is why Q&A is so important. So this entire time I thought you guys could see me when I'm giving this explanation. So I profusely apologize. Let me start that part over. Welcome to live webinars. This is when you're learning and I'm learning as well. So this is my measuring tape, right? So I like to use my measuring tape. And if you look here, it's about 2.25 inches is what I have here. This is by using the measuring tape. The reason I like using the measuring tape is because I can use this metal hook in order to hook to the very zero of my actual object and realize it's 2 1/4 inch. Now, the trick I was trying to explain with the ruler that I didn't realize so many people couldn't see. This is my regular ruler, right? It's a little dusty, but all you need to know is that the 0-inch mark starts right there. And this is the 1 inch, right? And I'm gonna make that a little bolder so you all can see, because I'm already seeing a couple of complaints that you can't really see it. And this is what I'm talking about when I say we're building your creativity muscle. Sometimes you have to do stuff on the fly in order for people to see. And this is my moment. So let's see if that's better. Is that better? Okay. So you see how the ruler really starts here, but the 0-inch mark starts there. The trick I have to making sure your measurement doesn't add this little space here is start at the 1-inch mark and measure out, and whatever measurement you get, subtract 1. To show you an example. So here, if I measured from the edge of the ruler to over here, the actual width of my top is 2 1/2 inches approximately. Now, using my actual measuring tape, I know this isn't 2 1/2 inches. It's more like 2 1/4 inch. So that means I'm adding another 1/4 inch to my top measurement, which is not going to make for a precise fit on top of my cup. That's basically, if I had this thermos, that's the thickness of this thermos is a 1/4 inch. So I'm adding another 1/4 inch to my measurement. So the actual top I'm going to make as a stencil is going to be hanging out like this. I don't want that. That's why I like to use my measuring tape. But if you don't have measuring tape, the trick is, instead of measuring it from here and having that extra 1/4 inch added, shifting it to the 1-inch mark, and you see how the measurement is closer to 3 1/4 inch is the mark it makes. And since we moved it 1 inch over, that's 2 1/4 inch. Does that make more sense? Let me know if that was less confusing. Okay, I see a couple of people still with the, I don't know what that was about, but that seems like it was an older question. Any other questions about measuring your cup? And don't forget to raise your hand so I know that you finished measuring your cup. Don't worry, this is why we do these warm-ups. It's a way for me to teach you some basic skills or some things you probably haven't encountered in school yet that engineers have to understand and know in order to bring their projects and ideas to life. So I thank you for that actual detour. Any other questions in regards to measuring your cup before we go back into the stencil? And don't forget to raise your hand so I know that you're with us and you're able to actually move on. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, let's go back into Tinkercad for a second. So here we have our cylinder, right? So I just measured out that my cylinder was 2.5 inches. So I'm gonna write that down. So I'm gonna write down 2.5 inches is what I want the width of the cylinder to be. And I want the actual length of the cylinder to be the same, because when we're dealing with the cylinder, it's a circle. So my length and width should be equal. And you see here that it's already adjusted accordingly. Next up, I want to actually start flattening it out. So typically this here is going to be about what? Almost 1 inch. That's a little too thick for a stencil, especially if we're trying to bring it to life. That's a lot. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make this 0.25 inches. I think that's a reasonable thickness for a stencil that I want to fit over my actual cup. So that's going to be the base of our stencil. So I know you guys had a couple ideas that you sketched out of what you want to actually include in your stencil. I actually would like if you guys in the Q&A section tell me what 3 things that you actually submitted as a sketch for yourself that you're brainstorming about bringing to life in your stencil. So go ahead and add that to the Q&A part, just so I can get an idea of what you guys are thinking. And while you submit that in the Q&A, I'm going to ask you to think to yourself, which one of these 3 ideas do I want to actually bring to life? Okay, we see some people have a star, a cat. Wow, a cat. I see a flower. I see a heart. What are some other things you guys are thinking about bringing to life? Ooh, a mermaid tail, a bear, an A, a rat and stars. Okay. I see a lot of animals. I see stars. I see a TikTok logo. I think someone in this webinar is really obsessed with TikTok, but okay. Our cartoon Harry Potter. Let's see, what else? Okay. Don't know what that is. A swirl. Oh, okay. A swirl. Let's see. A heart, an A, a star. What else? We got a lot of A's. Okay. I guess a lot of people's initials must include A. I'm going to do a random guess here, but okay. Okay, let me see a couple of more. Ooh, a custom design. I like that. Well, I'm going to be Miss Basic here, and I'm actually going to just look at creating a stencil of a star. I do like the star idea because everyone should wake up feeling like a superstar. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go down here, and you know one of my favorite basic shapes is the star. I'm going to bring this over. Another one of my favorite shapes is actually an egg. I don't know what it is. I find an egg shape fascinating. And so what I'm actually going to do is also go into my Tinkercad Collections toolbar, scroll down. I'm going to go to, what is one of my favorite? Let me look at characters. There we go. And I'm going to go and get an egg. So I'm going to bring the egg over here. Now, obviously, that's way too big, and I'm going to need to rotate it down. So I'm going to go here. Actually going to tilt my camera angle a little bit, and I'm going to rotate it and have it lying flat and go -90 degrees. And then I'm going to actually shrink it down based on its height, so I get almost a nice cross section of an egg. And remember, I want the thickness to at least be the same thickness as my stencil so I can make a hole out of it. Now I'm just going to try to reduce it and try to keep the dimensions as proportionate as possible. Let me do my top view, because you know we got to check our angles to make sure that we're not warping anything. Ooh, I don't know, that's a very narrow egg. Okay, so I have my egg and I have my star as the two stencils I'm gonna make. Ooh, I see some other people are coming in with a couple of other things they want to create. Okay, so what I'm gonna do at this point of the project, if you want to go ahead and make your stencil, go right ahead. I'm going to slowly show how I will make mine. So if you're trying to follow along and you're not so familiar with Tinkercad, you could follow along here. So all I did was bring over an egg and I manipulated it or changed it. So instead of being this egg, I made it an actual egg that's lying down, and I shrunk it down. And I'm going to show that again because someone just asked me to repeat that step. So let me just show that. I'm going to click here, and you see that little arrow? Ah, no, that's not what I wanted to do. See, no matter how long you've been on the software, there's still moments that it can make you go, no! And I don't like that in my life. So I'm going to go over to my double arrow, click, move up, and I'm actually going to have it start to lie down 90 degrees. And because I missed it, I'm just going to go ahead and click -90, because you know, no matter how long you've been on the software, there's still those days. Just one of those days. Okay, now I have my egg laying flat. I'm going to actually use the height tool and decrease the height to make it flat. I can go ahead, since I already know the thickness of my stencil is 0.25 inches. I can click and make this 0.25 inches. And I already have a flat piece. Now, if I zoom out, I can tell that my egg outline is larger than my stencil. So I'm going to click here, and I notice it's about 2.4 inches by 1.8 inches. So I'm going to click this lower red square, and I'm going to slowly drag it to manipulate it until I make sure that it can fit within a 2.25 inch by 2.25 inch stencil. So you see here, I'm just playing around with it. This I'm eyeballing. But remember what I said earlier this week for those returning with us and those who are new, this is a very important tip. Check your angles. Make sure that the angle you're working with still looks good when you rotate your camera box in the upper left-hand side. So I got that front angle. I'm looking at my top and I'm going, okay, she's looking good. I may exaggerate the egg shape a little bit by increasing her height. I'm going to exaggerate just a little bit here, give her some width, make her a little taller here, and then I'm going to shrink her down just a tad bit more. I like my egg to actually look like an egg, and so you're going to see me slowly fumble with it. Now that I have my egg the way I want it to, it's time for us to use one of the 5 tools that I mentioned earlier. And one of those 5 tools is selecting this object and then selecting the object that we want to align with. Now, I showed you guys earlier this week that you can just simply click and drag, right? The problem with clicking and dragging is that I accidentally already clicked in the star. I don't want the star to be in this stencil necessarily. So what I can do is click the Shift key, go over to the star and unclick it to make sure it's not included. To double check if I've included that star, I can go over to my Shapes toolbar, which is right here, and I notice it says only 2 shapes have been selected. When I look at my work plane, I can see there's a blue outline around the egg and there's a blue outline around the stencil. This lets me know that I've selected the right 2 objects. Once I've done that, I'm going to go back to our favorite tool, the merge, the align tool, and I'm going to wave my mouse over, click, and what the align tool does, it allows for us, I'm going to screen hop for a second, to make sure this shape is aligned with this shape. So if I go back to my actual model, I can click the align tool to center down the middle. And you saw how it gave us that preview of our future. I love that to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And I really want to actually make that decision and click for permanent. Here, I see the line down the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to tilt this bad boy up. Ooh, I tilted her up too much. And we can see here, if I use my Fit Screen toolbar, which zooms in on the objects that I've selected, if you remember, I can play around with my camera angle a little bit more and see that she's looking good from the top. She's looking good here, but wait. If I zoom in right there, you'll notice there's a gap. If you don't notice there's a gap, let me go ahead and add a little spotlight to it. So you can notice there's a gap between the stencil and the actual object here. But remember, I made my actual egg 0.25 inches in thickness. So I'm going to use the last part of the align tool, and that's aligning down the center. And the reason why I want to align down the center is that I want to actually make sure it looks okay. If I go here to my fitted view, I can see a preview a little more closely of what this would look like with the stencil and the egg tool aligned down the middle. If we see here with that prediction, you can see that the little egg is kind of inside, but it's not cutting all the way through. And remember, we want to have a hole that cuts all the way through the stencil. So for me, I'm going to have to go back. Oop, I pressed the wrong tab. Don't worry about that. I'm going to actually try to make my egg height a little thicker in order to cut all the way through. So here, I'm going to manipulate my egg so it's a little bit thicker, and I'm going to actually use the black triangle on top and drag it through, and you can see here how it's actually dragged down to the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight for those who are asking to look and see. You see here, this is part of my egg that's gone through the shape. So now that I know it can go through the shape, I'm going to click off my little spotlight, and I'm going to again select my egg, hold down the Shift key, select my stencil, go to my align tool, change so that they're both aligned on the bottom. The reason why I'm aligning it on the bottom is to make sure that this cuts through. It doesn't look good though. So let me try cutting it through the middle. That looks more like I want it to look. So now that I'm happy with it, I'm going to use one of the other tools we've already talked about, which is the group tool, in order to have it go through. But that's not what I wanted. I mean, she's cute for a necklace pendant, but we wanted it to actually be a stencil with a hole through it. So the step that I forgot to do, so I'm gonna ungroup from my upper right-hand toolbar, is I actually want this egg to be a hole. So I'm gonna click the hole, I'm gonna select again my stencil, and then I'm gonna group. And ta-da! I actually have my egg stencil that I can use on top of my beverage in order to make sure that I have a cute little outline of the egg when I'm dusting it with hot cocoa or sugar or something of that nature, just like Paige did with her cup of love potion and having like hot cocoa and cinnamon on top using a heart stencil. So now that I've showed you mine, raise your hand if you guys at least got your first shape in your stencil done. So go ahead and let me know. I see a couple people got their hand raised. Awesome sauce. For those who asked the question about changing it to inches, don't forget, I'm going to put my little spotlight up. You're going to go to Edit Grid, and then you can change the units from millimeters to inches, or if you want to go back to millimeters, you can go from inches to millimeters. And to change the width, you will click here and here to change the width to whatever you want. Well, the width and the length. And then click Update Grid, and you should be good to go. So I have my egg one here. I'm going to do a duplicate with the star, but I'm wanting to take some time to answer any questions and helping you all making your stencil. Oh, nope. Okay, so I see a couple of questions coming in, so give me a second to get all of them down. Let's go ahead. Okay, some people are saying just give me some time. I'm creating an ice cream cone stencil. I got you. Go ahead at your own pace. But I want you guys to take the time and at least do 2 of the 3 shapes that you sketched out earlier that you want to bring to life in Tinkercad. I know some of you have mentioned cats, our cartoon Harry Potter face. I will stick to the simpler shapes for right now, just so you can get a feel of creating stencil. Creating stencil sounds like the food, schnitzel, but creating your stencil and then slowly making it more complicated. Like for here, I already have my egg shape. What I can do is zoom out a bit. I can click my star shape and I can manipulate my star to be a little smaller. And I'm going to tilt my camera angle. And I see that the height is already 0.57. So I'm going to drag this over. Ooh, nope, I made that mistake. That was my mistake. Do not do what I just did. Pretend that didn't happen. I'm going to drag my actual shapes here. I'm going to see if I can add stars to my stencil. Raise it up so it's cutting all the way through. Again, playing with your camera angles to make sure that your stuff is through. Make a hole. I'm going to change my camera angle again to make sure that everything's hunky-dory. And I'm going to duplicate. And I'm going to move a star on another side. And I'm just using my mouse for this one. Over here, use my duplicate tool. That's how I'm making copies. You can also use your keyboard and Control-D to duplicate and repeat. I'm going to move this up here to give my stencil a little bit more character. And looking at the top view, I can see the stars are just playing around all over the egg. So I'm going to create a couple more, but this time I'm going to use the copy tool and the paste tool just to show you and remind you of different ways you can add a little bit of character to your actual shapes using different tools to create duplicates. I got another one here. And so what's today's date? It's the 8th. It's 4/8/2020. So let me see if I can manage to put at least 4 stars on here, if not 8. But while I'm doing this, feel free to submit some Q&A questions for me if you're having trouble actually doing this. One of the cool things about having a webinar that you're actually going to see me repeat over and over again, well, not see, but hear and see me repeat over and over again, is that this is a way for you to ask questions from somebody, or ask questions to somebody who's been doing this for a while. When I say I've made terrariums or floating hydroponics using Tinkercad, I've made Avengers inspired products and I won't say weapons, but let's say some a sidekick's tools using Tinkercad. I've done a lot of electronics projects on here. So when I'm showing you some tips and tricks, I'm showing you things that have saved me a mental headache over the years. So feel free to ask me questions if you feel you're stuck or you're having issues bringing something to life. So we already have that straight. I'm going to highlight all of this. And please raise your hand once you feel your stencil is done. I'm going to go ahead and select all since I don't have to worry about this. I'm going to group. And now I have some stars to go around my actual Easter stencil. And I think the last thing I'm going to do is add some text here. So I'm going to add some text and I'm going to add Mbadika. Why does that sound like Pikachu? I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let it sound like Pikachu. So here I'm going to just add my organization's name here. And I'm going to just do a tilted view to decrease the height just a little bit. And obviously I'm going to decrease the length and the width because it's way too long and way too wide. So I'm going to do this here and I'm going to move it over. Now I have to make it even smaller because it's way too big to be right there. I'm going to make a very custom looking stencil for my peeps. Now, you may notice a problem I'm having right now. So I'm going to zoom in right here. Here's another quick tip. So you see how it's cutting right into my star here, the M in Mbadika. And when I shift over, the A is cutting into the star. The reason why that's happening is because each of these squares is 1/8 an inch. How do I know it's 1/8 an inch? Well, that's what this little bad boy down here is all about. This is telling me what is the actual dimensions of each of these little squares. So each of those squares is 1/8 of an inch, which seems to be, when I zoom back in, if I move one keyboard stroke to my left, is too much because it's interacting with the star. And if I move one keyboard stroke to the right, it's interacting with the star. So that means I need to shrink these little squares because that's how you actually move across your work plane. So instead of making it 1/8 an inch, I'm going to click this menu. I'm going to make it 1/16 of an inch. And see the difference that's made when I make the actual squares represent a smaller distance on my work plane. So I'm going to shift to the left. And you see how it's just barely touching my star on the left. So I'm going to do 1/32 of an inch. And I'm going to move shift back to the right and boom, voila. I actually have enough moves to make sure it fits perfectly within there. So that's a little tip about the snap grid part on the lower right-hand side of your toolbar. That's what you can use it for, so you can do more precise movements of pieces. Now let's look here. We notice, if we zoom in a little bit, that the actual text goes all the way through our stencil. So we can go back to home view, select our stencil, group these two bad boys together. And then I'm going to go back to fitted view so I can zoom in on it, look at it from the top. And I forgot to do something again, didn't I? I forgot to make that a whole. So we're going to go here, click, make it a whole, shift, click the stencil, group together. And did it become a whole? And it did. So now we have our Mbadika stencil for me to make my actual beverage tomorrow. Raise your hand if you're finished, or you at least put one shape in. Okay, I see a couple of hands raised. See some other hands raised. Okay, I see you. So this is my stencil right here. I'm just gonna click off so you guys can see it a little bit better. And I'm gonna get rid of this. Well, I can leave the egg there. She can stay there. but just seeing her in all her glory there, see her from the side, whoop, you see that little star nipped right there? I don't like that. I don't like imperfection. So I'm just gonna do a little cosmetic surgery on that. You know what? You know what, Nisha? Sometimes we need to find beauty in our imperfections. I'm gonna let you stay. I'm gonna let you stay. I'm gonna pretend you don't exist right now. It's totally fine. And yes, this is how engineers talk to themselves. Sometimes you just have to go, you know what? I'll give it to the universe. I'm going to keep it moving. So this is my stencil. I don't like the fact that it's orange, so I'm going to go and change the color and make it blue. Ooh, that's a bright blue. There we go. Something a little more subtle. You don't want to hit them with everything at once. So there we have our stencil. And I think we have almost everybody I can see who's participated. I see a lot of hands raised. If you need any help, now is the time before we move on to our Perfect Oasis project. Okay. So for those who have their hands raised, congratulations. I'm actually curious, could you tell me in the Q&A part if you were able to do more than one shape in your stencil? Because I've been able to get 3 shapes in there, or if we count each star, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got 11 shapes into my stencil when I made it 2.25 inches by 2.25 inches. Wow, sorry. Okay, I see a lot of people say yes, they were able to get multiple shapes into their stencil. Good job. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna review very quickly how to do the stencil, just so you remember. And the reason why I'm taking so much time with this is a key skill when you're doing engineering projects. And what I mean by that is whenever you're building something, you have to make sure you align, you use the group tool, you're able to create holes. If you want to use the Scribble tool, being able to use that and manipulate or change things using it. And last but not least, mastering the basic shapes that are in the right toolbar of your Tinkercad workplane. So just to review, we took a basic shape from the right toolbar, brought it to our workplane. I decreased the height to 0.25 inches because that's the thickness I wanted. I changed the length and width to 2.25 inches based on the measurement of my actual tab, or, well, I think you wouldn't call it a tab, you would just call it a cap. But based on the measurements of my cap, which is the same measurements as my cup. Once we had this here, I took another shape, like this egg, and since I know the stencil height is 2.25 inches, I know this has to cut through, so I'm gonna make this 0.5 inches. I brought this over to my stencil by clicking my stencil using the Shift key, going to the Align tool on the right-hand side and aligning down the middle, zooming out so you guys can see, lining here and then down the middle. I'm going to drag both of these over. So clicking here and clicking the stencil, I'm going to drag them over so we have a little bit more space to work and the fitted zoom. Now this egg needs to cut through here. How do we cut through a shape? We make it into a hole. So we go to our actual toolbar, select hole, front view, pull that bad boy down, select the stencil again, align down the middle, and you see how we can see the top and the bottom and they look pretty straight to us. Once our alignment is where we want it to be, clicking the group tool on the right hand side, tilt that bad boy back up, and you have your stencil. So how was this as a warm-up? Did you guys feel this was a little bit challenging? Were you able to remember all the skills that you've learned in Tinkercad and kind of do it on your own without me guiding you so much? Let me know in the Q&A section before we move on back to our Project Oasis. So let me know, and also make sure I haven't had anyone's hand lowered. Raise your hand to make sure I know who's actually finished their stencil project, because if you haven't, I'm going to be following up with you to make sure everything's okay. Da, da, da. So if your hand still isn't raised, raise it back up. This isn't the time to raise your hand down. This is the time to raise your hand up. I grew up in the Southern Baptist churches, so you hear my Southern my Southern pastor vibe come out sometimes. Okay, I see a bunch of hand raised. Okay, okay. Okay, so for some of you, this was really straightforward. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, this seems like a lot. This is just to give you a refresher on your Tinkercad basic skills before we move on to the Perfect Oasis project. So I see a couple people going, they were able to do it. They may not have been able to get all three, but they were able to get most of their stuff in. Okay. If you feel like these projects are too easy, the reason why they may seem too easy is because you've had previous experience or you're quick to pick up this stuff. If you're able to, I'm going to challenge you to not do the bare minimum I'm doing on an actual Tinkercad. If you know you can put an egg shape into a stencil, then do something more complicated. For your mermaid tail, I want to see you manipulate shapes. I want to see you change the basic shapes into mermaid tails or change it into Harry Potter's face or things of that nature. I want you to challenge yourself so you can ask me questions while we're tinkering together. This is supposed to be for all skill levels, so I'm going to go to make sure everybody's on the same page. But if you're able to go a little further, challenge yourself. Just don't do the bare minimum and keep it moving. I want you to challenge your brain because this is a warm-up for you to help unleash your creativity. So hopefully everyone has at least a basic stencil done so we can move on to our Perfect Oasis project. And I see the hand raising, so I think we're pretty good. One tip and trick, I see someone just sent me an SOS, right? So if you've accidentally deleted something, you can go here to your actual upper left-hand side. You'll see a button that's an arrow going backwards. That's the undo button, or Control-Z on your keyboard. That would allow for you to undo whatever you just did if you need to backtrack. If you lost it because your browser had to refresh, that's a whole different ballgame. You could salvage your actual Tinkercad model by pressing the back button on your browser to go back to the previous save of your Tinkercad file. This is something I've had to encounter because sometimes we teach workshops where internet access isn't readily available, and sometimes Tinkercad can cut out and you have to be able to go back and save your file. So that's two tricks that I have to remedy or save your file. Any other last minute questions before we move on to the Oasis project? Ooh, if neither of those worked, I'm gonna have to say Tinkercad is amazing, but you're probably gonna have to redo it. I will see from my end, we're actually gonna have, for anybody who's interested, on Friday, we're gonna have just a free-for-all day and we're gonna be playing some STEAM activities, but we're also gonna have an educators roundtable, which is for parents and educators using Tinkercad. I'm gonna be joined by my colleagues in order to discuss tips and tricks for Tinkercad. I will make sure to definitely ask that question to the Tinkercad team to see how in the future we can remedy that problem. So hopefully we can get that straight. Any other questions? Seems everything else is, everyone's ready to move on to the Perfect Oasis project. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna lower everybody's hands. I want you to click the upper right-hand icon, unless you want to save this for later. Click the upper right-hand, oh, I said right-hand. Upper left-hand icon in order to get back to your dashboard. And you should be able to find in your dashboard your previous project for the Perfect Oasis project. So you'll see here all of my recent Tinkercad projects should be here. Now, earlier I had a question about what to do if you've lost your circuit project. If your circuit project doesn't appear on the left-hand toolbar where you can go to circuits and it doesn't appear here, then you may have lost it, but let me know in the Q&A section if you're having that issue. But for everyone else, your Perfect Oasis project should be in your 3D design section over here. I've already pulled up mine previously, so I don't have to wait for it. But it should be your dashboard if your left-hand side says you're in the 3D design section. So I'm going to make sure everyone has a little bit of time to get to that part. And if you're new here, don't worry. The Oasis project is a project we started yesterday, but I'm going to give you a brief explanation on what the Oasis project is. Let me answer one quick question because, as I said before, I leave no man, woman, or child behind. And so, while everyone is getting straight going to their actual Perfect Oasis project, you'll see this right here. I'm going to show you how you make sure that two objects are aligned. So I'm just gonna copy and paste the stool, and I'm gonna change the color of the stool here, just so you know which one is which. So this one's red, perfect. So let me move it here. So if you want to rotate to make sure two objects are aligned, let's align these two stools here, and let's align it down the middle. So align it down the middle, and align it here. No, let's align down the middle. Oh, sorry, my mouse is being weird. Give me a second. Tech issues also hit me. I can only be human. Okay, so it's aligned down the middle between these two, perfect. So to change your camera angle, go to your actual, I'm gonna get my little spotlight. Give me one sec. Go to your actual upper left-hand cube. That's your camera angles. Hold the cube with your mouse and slowly move it in order to be able to see it from different angles. If you only want to see these two objects, the two stools I have here, click the two stools and then go to fitted view. Fitted view is going to zoom in on the two objects you selected. So when you zoom in, you're not seeing everything. Once you're in fitted view, you can actually use your cube to make sure that those two objects are aligned from all angles. Because remember, check your angles. Make sure something looks aligned here, also looks aligned when you look at it from the top. And in this case, it looks pretty good. So we're going to go back to our home view. We're going to select off, and there we have it. So should we give me a show of hands if everyone is here in their Perfect Oasis work plane? Just so I know we're here. Okay, I see a couple of hands raised. I want to see a couple of more hands raised. If you do not have a Perfect Oasis project, just go ahead into your Tinkercad dashboard and go to Create New Design, because we're going to be starting from scratch. Okay, can everyone see me again? I'm getting a couple of yeses. Okay, perfect. So here's a brief review of what the Perfect Oasis project is. So yesterday and a little bit on Monday, we started researching. So yesterday and today, we started researching what would be our perfect oasis, or what would be our perfect retreat in our home that we can call our own. Some people create these using pillow forts. Some people create tents using a comforter or sheet on their bed in order to have a private reading section. We were calling this, what is the perfect place in your home that you can transform into a paradise or an oasis for yourself? So that was the Perfect Oasis project. And what we were doing with Tinkercad yesterday was using the various things available in Tinkercad in order to create a layout of what our perfect oasis would be. How would we create this layout? Well, Tinkercad has a bunch of tools and a bunch of collections of basic shapes and furniture that looks like the furniture we have in our home that we can use and rearrange using Tinkercad's work plane as a template or a blueprint for us building our perfect oasis in real life. So yesterday we explored a couple of features in Tinkercad, including basic shapes, the OMSI shape collection, as well as making at home collection in order to get a few items that we can find in our homes and creating a blueprint of how we would arrange those items in order to create our perfect oasis or retreat in our home. Today, we're going to continue doing that work. Most of this work is going to be independent. I'm going to show you all some tips and tricks, but it's for you to explore Tinkercad, creating your very own project. As I mentioned earlier in this webinar, come to find out, your actual Perfect Oasis project is something you can actually submit into the Tinkercad Instructables contest for distance learning. Luckily, that deadline is not until June 1st, so you'll have plenty of time to adopt these tips and tricks that you're learning in this webinar to actually use in your submission to that contest. In the specific category of space, because we're essentially making a blueprint of what our perfect oasis space will look like. So I'm going to show you what my perfect oasis blueprint looked like at the end of the day yesterday. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that I've seen from you all submissions so we can be able to tinker together and learn from each other. And then we're going to wrap up today because you're going to finish your perfect oasis. And I'm actually going to announce, my voice, now something really special that's going to happen in regard to your perfect oasis project. So let's get back into Tinkercad. Boom. So here we're back into Tinkercad. As I mentioned yesterday in my perfect oasis template that this is supposed to be a creative space. And we all decided that this was going to be a creative space with the sofa that I have in my 1-bedroom apartment, with this little stool that I have as one of the fine pieces of furniture I have here. And this here is supposed to be my mattress. So I actually should write text that says, here lies Nisha's mattress. And I'm actually going to put it right here so I at least know, am I going to miswrite mattress? Is mattress with 1 T or 2 T? Why is this bugging me right now? Okay, got it straight. See, being in quarantine and not being able to get some stuff straight has also caused me to lose some key skills that allow for me to communicate with my fellow man. But let's look here. No! Sorry, the dramatics aren't necessary. This is just my life. So I'm rotating and I want to make it 90 degrees. So it's very clear that this bad boy right here is a mattress. I'm going to decrease the height a little bit, just so everyone knows. And I'm going to select the mattress that I've made out of the box basic shape here. I'm going to group it. I'm going to make sure when it's grouped is multicolored, so the red stands out. And so here you have my mattress. So if I look at the top view, this is almost like a blueprint or a floor plan that architects and construction workers use in order to lay out a space. So here I've used my mattress almost as a backdrop for me creating videos, in my 1-bedroom apartment. So typically I'll be sitting on this stool. I put a very navy blue bed sheet over my mattress and have it sitting straight up in order to use it as a backdrop. Just for those who are joining us today, this here is not my mattress. This is an actual wall that I have a piece of fabric in the back because I don't like white walls in the background of my videos. So this is another navy blue piece of fabric that I use. This is not my mattress. This is imaginary. I haven't actually built this yet. So here's my mattress. Here's a stool. Here's my sofa that's going to allow for other people in the house to actually help me set up my camera and other things to record TikTok videos, dance videos, or me creating projects like I'm doing here. And I need to figure out some other stuff. So here, yesterday we went to the actual OMSI Hangout Space collection. And that's where we're able to find on the right-hand side all these pieces of furniture that we can utilize in order to bring our space to life. This is where we found the large sofa. This is where we found the stool. This is where we can add like a house plant if I want to jazz it up a little bit, or a round table or a lamp. We also found there's some stuff at the Make It at Home collection on the right-hand toolbar, which is some popsicle sticks, some tissue rolls, pencils, a boba straw, beverage cap, a metal can. So we have all these things that we can use. Matter of fact, I can actually utilize the table in my OMSI space. So even though that says a bench, I'm going to use this one here. This one's a little weird, but we're going to make it do what it do. So I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to rotate it 90 like I did before. Ooh, perfect on the first try. Well, probably not perfect on the first try. But I want to have this here. And as you can tell, I'm going to use my upper left-hand corner to see if it's aligned. Doesn't look so aligned to me. So I'm going to select all the objects that I want it to be aligned with by holding down my shift key. And I'm going to line down the middle to make sure it's aligned, and booyah, perfect. So here, I'm going to add some stuff on my table. I noticed the height of my table is 16 millimeters because as you can tell here, I'm in a different grid. So 16 millimeters is the height of my table. So if I want to go to the Making at Home collection and add some more stuff, I'm going to click Making at Home. I'm going to scroll down and I see I'm going to add a metal can because I want to show a blueprint for my, experimental station. This here is true to size because we're working in millimeters, and yeah, I didn't get my proportions right. So don't do what I did. But this is just a blueprint, so I don't need the sizes perfect. So what I'm gonna do is just adjust accordingly, but don't do what I did. Pay attention to your actual measurements before you get started. So you see me here, and I'm gonna raise this using that black triangle right there. I'm gonna raise this black triangle off the work plane 16 millimeters. So I'm gonna click 16 millimeters. And now I'm gonna move it to the area of the table I want it to be on. It's still kind of big to be on the table, so I'm gonna move, and I'm gonna adjust a little bit and just do it this way. And see, now I have my object on the table. I can now change my camera angle to see how it looks. I'm gonna adjust it a little bit, and you can see my actual can is sitting pretty on my actual table. And so when you're making a blueprint, this is something for you to actually use as a template for how you want to lay out stuff. So you have your top view, and then you have your side view. Now, one thing I noticed someone actually did, which I thought was brilliant, is they went to their basic shapes and they went to the scribble. Now, remember I said that most times when you make your perfect oasis, you're making almost a tent, and we can't really put in fabrics or blankets or comforters into Tinkercad because we're dealing with rigid shapes, and those are soft shapes. Well, actually, you can use the Scribble Tool as someone did yesterday when they were creating their perfect oasis, and they actually created a blanket on the floor. So I'm gonna try to do the same, and pretty much, as you can tell, this went to a horrible start. If you don't like what your shape looks like, you can always press clear or a back button right here. But I can see the progress and what it looks like here for my actual shape there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually clear it because I don't like it. And I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna try one more time to make my blanket. And then I'm gonna make it so this is more filled in. Hold on. Let me try to, is that showing up? Okay, it's showing up. So you see, I can actually just fill in. If you're really cautious, you could have made this smaller to actually fill in your blanket. I'm gonna clear one more time, so I'm gonna do a smaller version of this. And I know the person who actually made it is like laughing at me right now, but it's totally fine. I'm okay with being laughed at. And I'm gonna do this here, this here, this here, this here, this here, making sure there's no holes in the middle of it. Is it gonna look a little weird? It's going to, but it's totally fine with me. And you can see I have this weird shape. I told you I'm not an artist, so this is my best rendition of it. So this is gonna be my rendition of a blanket. And I can actually move it over and have it be something that sits on top of here. So here, I'm gonna look at my height. My height is 20 millimeters. I'm gonna click here, that black triangle, and raise it 20 millimeters. And now I'm gonna move it up to make sure that blanket sits right on top of my stool so I know it's there. So these are some simple things that you can actually do while laying out different things that you want to be in your perfect oasis space. Now, once you get your perfect oasis space done, and you feel like you have everything that you need, I'm gonna show you two things you can do with your perfect oasis space. The first thing is you can do a top view, right? So when you do your top view, make sure you have it centered. Let's do home, and let's do top view. So you can see the entire layout of your space. So once you get your entire layout, this was the trick I showed you yesterday, you can click send to, and you'll see right here that you can actually download a picture of your design. Once you download a picture of your design, you can use it as a template or as a blueprint to actually bring your perfect oasis to life using things around your house. So one of the things we're working on right now is that we want you to actually show us, if you take your perfect oasis blueprint you made in Tinkercad to make your perfect oasis in your home, to bring your perfect oasis to real life or to reality. And so we're going to figure out how to do submissions, etc. But that's one of the things we want you guys to actually show off and share with us, so we can be able to go like, okay, this is so adorable, like this is a great project, etc., etc. So one of the things I want you to do is make sure when you lay out things, if you need to add text, using the text basic shape, so you know this is the living room sofa, for example. I love for you to annotate, which is basically writing notes for yourself in order for you to know what exactly certain objects are. So when you take your snapshot and use it to rearrange things for your perfect oasis, you know exactly what certain things are. Because one of the things I notice when I'm designing stuff is when I'm in the midst of designing, oh yeah, I totally know what everything is. But after a couple of hours when I'm actually trying to remember, because I'm trying to actually bring it to real life, that's when you start going, oh, yeah, I actually don't really remember what exactly this weird gray thing is. And so you see here, I'm just using the text feature to make sure I'm adding everything. And I am horrible when it comes to rotating things 90 degrees. So you'll see me rotate it and then go, no, that's not exactly what I was talking about. I'm gonna select, and then I'm gonna group. And then continue laying this out. So I want you guys in the meanwhile, no, okay. Let me stop my random talking for a second. So no, I can't actually see you. I've disabled all the cameras, so I can't see what you're doing. I can't see your homes, so you're perfectly safe. So if there's something you're trying to show me, I can't actually see it. So I know some people are like, hey, you haven't commented on my project. No, because I can't see it. For good reason. I wanted to make sure that you all felt safe in this environment and not pressured to show certain progress in your actual Tinkercad models. So this is for your privacy and protection. So no, I can't see your cameras. Don't feel panicky. Don't feel like this is Big Brother. No, I can't see what you're doing. So don't worry about that. I also feel like it protects me and my sanity. So I'm not constantly going, when you guys are doing stuff and I'm trying to remember what I'm actually doing here. So I want you all to continue building and adding to your Perfect Oasis project. Who remembers the actual 4 things we decided on as the guidelines to deciding whether or not the oasis we're building a blueprint for in Tinkercad is the perfect oasis? Go ahead and add that in the Q&A part. I want to see if you guys remember. What were the 4 things we decided? It had to be restful. Okay, I see 1. It had to be restful. That means you were able to get some rest. You were able to feel what exactly? What's the second one that you had to? Restful. You should be able to take a nap. Yep, I think that falls in line with restful. What else? It had to be comfortable. Yes, so it had to be comfortable. So you have comfortable, restful. What was another thing? Why do I keep emphasizing that I want you to make your blueprint involve around things that are available in your house? What was one of the things we actually had as the characteristic or requirement for your oasis? This is for the people who were here the other day. Happy colors. Yep, we want it to be a bright and happy place that calms you down, makes you feel at peace, make you feel restful. There are some other ones. It had to have a function. So whatever you decided to make it, it had to serve that function. Some of you wanted a TikTok studio. Some of it wanted to be a makerspace. Some of you wanted to be a video game or mini arcade was your perfect oasis. It had to be memeable. I like that one. It had to include things in your home. That was one of the key characteristics as well. It had to include things made in your home. So we have happy colors, restful. It had to be something that fulfilled its function, whether it's a makerspace, a studio, a TikTok studio. It had to be comfortable. And what else besides things made from your home? It could be a studio, could be TikTokable. What else did it have to have? I think I said it had to be easy to do what with and then easy to do what with. That was one of the other things we had as a characteristic of how we'll judge if our oasis is truly the perfect oasis. So it should be easy to, yes, it should be easy to assemble. It should be easy to tear apart or break away. So those were the things where they were designing. What was the name of the characteristics that we use to describe our design and judge if it was perfect? It had a name. It was called design what? What is the name or the term for characteristics of a design that we use to judge whether or not a design is perfect or the best design? It's called design what? Someone's close, someone's really close. It does start with a P. What is that phrase? I'm gonna give you guys a couple of more seconds. What is the phrase that describes the characteristics of a design that we have made in order to judge whether it's perfect or whether it suits our needs? It's called a design what? Wait. Someone got it. It's called a design parameter. So design parameters are the characteristics that we use in order to judge whether or not our design fulfills the requirements or the needs we have for that design to be considered perfect or good. So I'm going to spell it out here, is design parameters. That is a key word you're going to see the more and more you dive into creating and making and tinkering, is that term design parameters, is what we use to make sure that whatever we're building fulfills our needs. So, so we have that. We have basically the characteristics of our design parameters. I'm going to go ahead and add them down here. We had comfort, restful, happy colors, ease to build and tear down or tear apart. What were some other things? Oh, served a function, such as it was a studio, makerspace, video game arcade, whatever you decide your oasis was going to be. And then last but not least, and must include materials easily available in your own home. So those are the design parameters of your actual oasis, and those are the design parameters I want you to keep thinking about as you explore making your perfect oasis. In order to share your perfect oasis with us, you have to share it on our social media with parent permission. Again, this is all the privacy and protecting your privacy in particular, and making sure that there's any way that we can get your information or what have you. So go ahead and ask an adult if you want to actually share your progress. I'm going to once again add to the chat, since now I realize that the previous chat you guys didn't receive or haven't received the past couple of days. So you can actually go on our social media, and our social media is at Mbadika or Mbadika, and we are existing on Facebook. We exist on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can go ahead and use the hashtag #TinkerTogether so we can easily find you, and post the snapshot of your perfect oasis. But don't forget to get parent permission and use their actual social media platform. And that way it's because you're not technically supposed to be on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. So while we have a couple of minutes, you guys are still tinkering around with your perfect oasis layout, do you guys have any questions for moi while I'm online? Because I want to make sure before you go out into the world and continue creating your perfect oasis that you are at least able to be at the step of, oh, ho, 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 ho. I got this, and I can tinker around with it. But please, please, if you have time tonight, I would love to see how you're able to transform your Tinkercad model into a real life model of your perfect oasis. So I'm going to give us about 2 to 3 minutes for questions, and then I'm going to give a sneak preview of what we're doing tomorrow. Oh, so someone asked the question, did I design products for Marvel to sell? So I publicly can't say yes or no to that because I'm under an NDA, which is a confidentiality agreement, but pretty much I can say I talked to them about it. And a couple of products that I would say you should really pay attention to that I'm very proud of is a couple of the Avengers Endgame toys, because Hasbro, luckily, is our neighbor here in Boston. So we have a great relationship with Hasbro and the Hasbro design team. And we work with them to give our opinions on whether a certain toy can be improved, whether certain aspects of a toy can be improved, and things of that nature. And that's one of the fun parts, because as a kid, I was obsessed with toys. I've always loved Barbie dolls. I've loved Nerf guns. I'm the person who would spend hours analyzing a toy. So to be able to give my input on toys and help with the design has been one of those things that is like a highlight of my adult career. So I'm not going to say what specific toys we've consulted on, etc., for legal reasons, but I'm going to say it's one of the things that Mbadika does as a product design and development company, which is the other part of our business. When we're not teaching you all or other kids around the world how to bring their ideas to life, we help companies bring their ideas to life. And this is one of the cool things I get to do. So no, it doesn't say our company name on the back of the toys, because the toys are actually owned by Hasbro. So you're never going to see on the back of the toy the actual name of the toy designer or the team that worked on the actual project. You're only going to see that company name. So the only claim to fame we have is we can say, like, we work with Hasbro, but we can't really talk about what projects we worked on with Hasbro unless we renegotiate our contract and they agree for us to get a little bit of the shine on some stuff. But yeah. Any other questions you all have for me? I would say if you're interested in some of our Marvel stuff, I actually will see one sec. If you go to our Instructables, so you're going to see, oh, wait, what is this computer doing? Oh, the computer's being weird. So I'm going to go to a new tab for a second. If you want to see any of our actual stuff that we've done, actually, you could just go. See, can you tell I was not prepared for you asking this question? And I'm going to clean up my little dashboard here a little bit because we already know what design parameters are. So we can go ahead and clean that up. So if you actually go to our YouTube, which you can just type in Mbadika, you'll see all of our recordings of these webinar sessions. You'll also see our step-by-step videos showing some projects that we've done. And so if you scroll, you can see, I scrolled too fast. You can see our actual webinars here of our Tinker Together series that we're doing right now with Autodesk. You can also scroll down, you can see the holiday special we did inspired by Star Wars, where we show you how to create cookie cutters and make hot cocoa inspired by the latest Star Wars movie. And if you come to the mLab Mbadika Laboratory Season 1, you can actually see all of our episodes, like when we made a Maleficent inspired caramel apple, when we made a 3D printed planner that was inspired by NASA. You can see how we made a Lion King Nala's mask using Tinkercad software. You can see how we made a cool Anulux battery, which was something from Avengers Endgame, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And you can see other projects. One of my favorites was the Captain Marvel Power Glove, which we used LEDs, like the Circus 101 project, to create an LED powered glove that in darkness, you can actually punch in the air and it looked like your whole hand was illuminated like Captain Marvel. And you can see Lego Movie 2 cookie cutter and shortbread cookies. Like, we have plenty of DIY projects. And if you click the videos, you can see our step-by-step guides, much like the Instructable step-by-step guides that you see here, that actually show you how to bring that project to life. And we're actually going to do one of those projects tomorrow, but shh, that's a secret. Which brings me to the last part before my internet gets all weird, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing to ask you all this question. So tomorrow, I'm going to show you guys how to bring your stencil to life. So the stencil we made with our warm-up activity, I'm going to show you how to take it from Tinkercad to an actual project you can do at home, regardless of what materials you have at home. So you can create little custom drinks tomorrow. And while we're shifting locations from my lab to the kitchen, there's another project I can show you. So you're going to have two choices. The first choice is going to be a cookie cutter, and me showing you how you can use Tinkercad in order to create a cookie cutter so you can make custom sugar cookies or chocolate chip cookies to your delight. Or, I can show you how to use Tinkercad in order to create 3D designs that we're going to send to the 3D printer and use to mold chocolate and candy out of. So in the Q&A section, show of hands or votes. Who votes for me creating a cookie cutter in Tinkercad for you to actually see how that works? And then who votes for me to do that, but show you how to make chocolate using your Tinkercad designs? I need to see it in the Q&A, because if we do the hands, I can't tell the difference between a right hand or a left hand. All hands look alike to me in the Zoom webinar. So let me know in the Q&A section. Oh, someone said, isn't it fun being a YouTuber? I would say that the fun part about being a YouTuber or being able to do stuff like this is that I enjoy it. I love building, I love tinkering, I love making stuff. Like, it's hard to get me out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, but when I finally get into the flow and I'm able to create and use my brain to bring things to life, that's when I get to be like, and be able to be in my zone. I think the most painful part about being a YouTuber is doing social media, because I'm not a very outgoing person. I like to keep to myself. So sometimes I don't brag enough about my projects. And the other part that kind of pains me about being a YouTuber is having to deal with editing. While I love editing to make my videos look really cool and interesting, and I love the team at Mbadika, we're able to do some really cool things because we have really passionate people who know their stuff. So when you see our videos, we go for like an old-timey vibe, and then sometimes we go for a pop culture vibe. Editing sometimes can be a nightmare, because just like some of you saw when you lost your CAD model in Tinkercad, you can lose a bit of footage or find out that bit of footage is horrible, and you're like, my masterpiece. And so those are kind of the little headaches that I get. But in terms of being able to build cool stuff that I've always wanted to since I was like 6 years old versus the headaches, I'm gonna say it leans towards this way. So I absolutely enjoy my time as a YouTuber. Don't take it. I am first and foremost an engineer and maker before I say I'm a YouTuber, because I'm not posting videos every day and every week. But the videos I do post, I'm gonna take that title. So any other questions? I like to hang 5 minutes after we end the session, just so I can get more votes and see what you guys are talking about. So I know some people, oh, okay, I have 2 questions. Wow, okay. So the 2 questions I'm gonna answer is, I became a YouTuber to teach, yes. So the reason why I created my YouTube channel was to showcase all the work Mbadika was doing teaching around the world. Mbadika currently teaches in 11 countries in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, alongside North America. So that's why, while my Spanish isn't great, I can speak Spanish and Portuguese. On the other hand, I would say that I love using YouTube as a format to teach folks, because I was one of the kids that if it wasn't at my library or my family and the 1 or 2 teachers I had in my life weren't able to teach it, it was hard for me to learn it. And I don't want other folks, especially kids like yourselves, to be in a position that you don't have that option. So I like to consider myself to be your Miss Frizzle when it comes to engineering and making, and being able to demystify that for you as well as your fellow loved ones. I finally see the votes coming in. Ooh, okay, I see the votes coming in. So don't worry if you're not able to do this project at home. The stencil project that we're gonna do tomorrow, based on our project today, you can do at home. So don't worry if you're not able to do all the projects we do tomorrow. The first part of tomorrow will be a project you can do at home. The second part of tomorrow is me just showing you what you can do once you have access to a 3D printer and create the chocolate molding process. So the part about the chocolates, which seems to be the very clear winner of this actual Q&A, is not for you to make it at home, but to show you how you can transform your Tinkercad models into something cool and different. A lot of times when we use Tinkercad, we think it's strictly for 3D printing and putting that stuff on a desk or giving it as a gift. I want to show you some various other things you can do with your Tinkercad models that a lot of people who own bakeries, who own chocolate shops are doing with Tinkercad models and 3D printers. So don't worry if you don't have a 3D printer. I am not assuming you have a 3D printer. You will be doing something with the stencil tomorrow that you created today. But the chocolate and all that kind of making process is me showing you something fun just to break up the schedule this week. So don't worry. But I think that seems about it. And also, we're not going to eat the plastic. So Someone just asked that question, like, is there going to be plastic in the chocolate? No, I'm going to show you how to make sure there's no plastic in your chocolate. So I think, Aww. Okay, I see a couple of people sharing their actual thoughts on a couple of pieces of chocolate, why they're really happy that there's a YouTube channel, and a couple of you guys are actually YouTubers. Huh. See, I see a couple of you talking about why you started YouTube channels. I think for a lot of us, we don't start YouTube channels because we're like, I want to live in the 50-room mansion and things like that. It's because we're passionate about something and we want to share our passion with other people and build a community around it. And I think that's what these webinars are, in my honest opinion, along with my YouTube channel. And when, alas, I was able to teach kids hands-on in a classroom. But I know we're about out of time, so I'm going to give us like 1 more minute before I have to sign off. And I'm going to say, it looks like we're doing chocolate. If you're curious about the cookie cutter project, never fear. I'm going to direct you all to my YouTube channel, so you can find the Mbadika YouTube here. Since now I realize you guys weren't receiving any of these, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can not only find a version of this chocolate project we did, which was the Magnificent Caramel Apples. You can also find our cookie cutter project just to see how we transformed our CAD bottles into a cookie cutter since it seems chocolate one. I see some of you cookie cutter folks were a little disappointed, but never fear, you can still see how we did that. That would be the Lego Movie 2 project. So I'm going to go ahead and show the Magnificent Caramel Apple is the chocolate project. And if you want to see the cookie cutter project, then you need to go to Lego Movie 2, shortbread cookie video. That's the cookie cutter project. So until tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern time and 8 a.m. Pacific time, or from wherever you are in the world, I'm going to see you as we continue to tinker together this week. Hasta luego, muchas gracias, and until later, I'll see you guys soon. Ciao. Do 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 do.